Chapter 3. News. As I turned the key in the front door, I could hear at once that Mum and Dad were at it again. Now there's a surprise, I mouthed silently, adding, I wonder what they're arguing about today. As if I didn't know. Shutting the door quietly behind me, I tiptoed through the hall to the living room door. No, I won't allow it, Mum raged. I recognised that tone of voice. It burnt like a laser. I winced, aware of how my dad would react to it. I wasn't wrong. Don't talk to me like that. I have some say in this too, and I've weighed up all the consequences. I've listed all the pros and cons. We don't have any other choice. This has nothing to do with us. You went ahead and did this all on your own, as usual. Mum's voice was lemon bitter. You make it sound as if all I was doing was thinking of myself. Weren't you? Of course not. Now why don't I believe that? My mum has a saying. Never stick your head where your backside can't follow. Mum wasn't letting Dad get away with anything. But that's exactly what you're doing. You're getting us into something we'll never get out of. And you didn't even ask first. It's for Cameron's own good. It's for the good of this whole family, said Dad. Because you say so, Mum scoffed. From where I'm standing, it looks as if what you want to do is to form your own son. I nodded grimly. I guessed what Mum and Dad would be arguing about, and I was right. I hated always being right. Mind you, I hadn't heard this particular argument before. This one seemed to be a new track on an old CD. What do you mean, deform? Now it's Dad's turn to hit the roof and pass right through it. How dare you say that? You wouldn't say that if this was a human heart. But that's the whole point. It's not, is it? You want to make our son a pig heart boy. A pig heart boy? What on earth was Mum talking about? I frowned as I leaned in closer. Better a pig's heart that works than a human heart that doesn't, Dad argued. Better than no heart at all. You think so? Said Mum. Yes, don't you want our son to live? A slap, like a crack of a whip, made me flinch as if Mum had slapped me instead of Dad. Silence echoed throughout the house. I'll never forgive you for saying that to me, never. Although Mum's voice held quiet fury, there was more than a little hurt in it as well. I love Cameron desperately. I'd do anything for him, anything. If I could give him my heart, I would, but I won't let you use him like this. Kathy, don't you think I've thought about this? Said Dad. Don't you think I've lain awake at night thinking about this? I've thought of nothing else but Cameron for the last 2 years. Our son has a year to live at most. There aren't enough human organ donors to go around, so we have a simple choice. We can allow our son to have a pig's heart, or we can watch our son die. Do you really let them implant a pig's heart into our little boy? I don't want to see him die, Dad interrupted, and I've been reading up about it. The doctors have been using pig valves in heart surgeries for years. A valve is different to a whole heart, Mum argued. Not so different. They use pig skin for skin grafts on humans. Pig insulin is supplied to diabetics. Pig heart valves are used all the time, so why not use a whole pig's heart? It's not the same, Mum insisted. What's different? Well, if you don't know, then I can't tell you. Look, this is Cameron we're talking about here, our son, our only child, said Dad. I leaned against the wall and looked down, way down past my feet, past the carpet, to a place far, far below me when I was totally alone. My stomach was churning like a liquidizer. Beads of sweat prickled on my forehead like hot needles. A pig's heart. What was the phrase Mum had used? Pig heart boy. Kathy, it's not as if they go to the nearest pig farm and pick out any old pig. They have pigs which have been especially bred for this. And that makes it all right, does it? Asked Mum, bitterly. Yes, it does. That's the whole point, Dad replied. Stop it! Stop it, both of you, I shouted. I couldn't bear to listen to any more. I turned and raced up the stairs, stomping down with my feet as hard as I could as I ran. I only got halfway up the stairs before I started hurting, so I slowed down. But I didn't stop. Cam, wait, Mum called out. I didn't answer. I couldn't, but I wanted to let the both of them know I was here. They were talking about me as if I didn't have a mind of my own, as if I couldn't make up my own decisions. How could they? How dare they? It was my body, my heart. I threw myself face down on my bed. I barely caught my breath when there came a knock at the door. Cam, can I come in? Asked Dad. I suppose so, I muttered. Dad walked into the room, followed by Mum. Without preamble, Mum asked, "Did you hear what we were talking about?" "I think the whole street heard," I replied as I sat up. Dad sighed. "I'd rather you hadn't heard the idea that way." "What way?" I asked. "With your mum and me arguing about it," he replied. I didn't see what difference it made. At least by eavesdropping I'd heard the truth, as both Mum and Dad saw it. But now they'd changed their way of talking. Now they talked to me in a way they thought I could understand, a way suitable for a teenage boy, all false smiles and false promises. "Cam," Dad began as he sat down on the edge of my bed. "Cam, a few months ago I wrote to a man, a doctor called Mr. Richard Bryce." I looked across at Mum, who was leaning against the door. "Who's he?" "He was a surgeon, but now he's an immunologist, specialising in genetics." "Huh? What's that? What's transgenics?" "Transplanting the organs of one species of animal into another." "Why would anyone do that?" "Because there aren't enough human organ donors," Dad explained carefully. "So people like him are trying to find other ways of keeping people like you alive." "People like me?" I winced at Dad's phrase. "I mean people who need hearts or kidneys or livers to have a decent quality of life," Dad added. I said slowly, "So you want me to have a pig's heart?" "I want you to have a heart that will allow you to do all the things you want to do, all the things a boy of your age should do. That's where Dr. Bryce comes in. Transplants are his area of expertise. I wrote to him via a newspaper to tell him about you and your case. I thought he might be able to do something to help you. I also sent him a letter of permission so that he could get your notes from our doctor in the hospital." "Why didn't you tell me before?" "I didn't know if Dr. Bryce would want to help you. I didn't want to raise your hopes only to see them dashed again. We've been down this road twice before, when we thought you'd be able to get a heart transplant from a human donor. Remember?" Yes, I did remember. How could I forget? Once I even got as far as the hospital, only to be turned back. A greater emergency had required the heart. I'd been picked at the post. Mum and Dad were furious. They stood and ranted at the hospital staff for a good 30 minutes. It wasn't their fault. The heart had been diverted to another hospital. There was nothing they could do about it. And then Mum had burst into tears. No, I wasn't about to forget that little episode, not if I lived to be 90. I sighed. "Dad, I still wish you told me." "Don't worry about it, Cam." "He didn't tell me either," Mum piped up from the door. I looked at her. She was so unhappy, so tired and unhappy. This was what I was doing to her, doing to my family, tearing them apart. "So what's happened? Has Dr. Bryce agreed to do the heart transplant then?" I asked. "It's not that simple," Dad shook his head. "Dr. Bryce has agreed to come and see us to talk about it. I certainly wouldn't agree to it without asking or talking to you first. So when does Dr. Bryce want to see me?" Dad looked from me to Mum and back again. He's coming to see you tonight." Chapter 4, Dr. Bryce. Tonight? And you didn't think to tell us before now?" Mum's body was rigid with rage. I didn't know myself until about 2 hours ago. Dr. Bryce phoned me at work and asked if he could come and see us this evening. What was I supposed to do? Say no? You were supposed to talk to me and Cameron first. Mum's voice was getting quieter and quieter. She stared at Dad at that moment, almost as if she hated him. I turned away. I couldn't bear to watch. I've just told you. I couldn't say anything until I knew Dr. Bryce would take Cameron's case, and I didn't know until a couple of hours ago. If I'd said something beforehand, you would have just got upset for no reason. So you knew I'd get upset. Mum's eyes narrowed, her voice chilled like liquid nitrogen. And I thought you might until you'd had a chance to calm down and really think about it. Don't patronise me, Mike, Mum snapped. Look, Dr. Bryce will be here soon, and if we don't present a united front, then we can all forget about it, Dad snapped back. He's hardly going to take this any further if you sit there glaring at him and making it obvious that you're against this whole idea. Then I'll sit there with a blank expression on my face and I won't say a word. Happy now? If you two are going to argue, I can go downstairs. I sighed. I came up here to get away from you. Mum frowned. Cameron, that's enough. Don't be so cheeky. I'm not being cheeky, I replied, bitterness spilling out of my voice. I'm just tired. Tired of you two fighting about me all the time. Tired of dreading coming home to listen to yet another quarrel. Tired of being piggy in the middle. My voice trailed off as I realised what I'd said. Piggy in the middle. I couldn't help it. I started to laugh. Dad's lips twitched. Mum looked weary as she too started to smile. She couldn't laugh though, but me and Dad were laughing. Loud, raucous laughter, unexpected and all the more welcome because of it. And then I burst into tears. It was hard to say who was more shocked, Mum, Dad or me. Mortified, I tried to stop. I tried to choke back the tears, but that just made it worse. I gulped hard and tried to take a deep breath, but the tears kept flowing. They ran down my cheeks and under my nose into my mouth, salty and unwelcome. I wiped my face with the back of my hands, wishing the bed would open up and swallow me. Cameron, darling, what's the matter? Mum flew across the room. Cameron, don't cry, Dad said, anguished. Look, I didn't mean to upset you. If you don't want to meet this doctor, then you don't have to. I wouldn't force you to do anything you didn't want to do. No, I want to meet him, I stammered. What's the matter, Cam? Why are you crying? Mum asked, her arm around my shoulders. I shook my head, but didn't speak. How could I answer? What was I supposed to say when, for the life of me, I had no idea why I was crying? Cam. Mum got no further. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Dr. Bryce, Dad said. Cameron, are you sure you want to see him? Because if you don't, I'll send him away. It's okay, I'm all right now, I shrugged away from Mum's arms. I'll go and wash my face. I'll see you downstairs. Without giving my parents a chance to say another word, I stood up and ran to the bathroom. Once there, I locked the door. I needed a few seconds of peace. I still had no idea what had made me blub like that. I couldn't remember the last time I'd cried. Where had that come from? You're just feeling sorry for yourself, I scowled at my reflection in the mirror above the basin. Stop it! Stop it now! I turned on the cold tap and allowed the water to run colder and colder into the basin, pulling the plunger to set the plug. I waited until the water was almost to the top, then I plunged my face into it. Instantly my skin began to tingle. I opened my eyes and reluctantly straightened up. That was better. It was just a shame I couldn't stay longer with my head beneath the water. I emptied the sink, then sat down on the edge of the bath. As I dried my face, my thoughts turned to Dr. Bryce. Something told me that if and when I meet this man, my life would change. One way or another, for better or for worse. And all I had to do was go downstairs. Or I could call Dad and tell him that I didn't want to meet Dr. Bryce, and that would be the end of that. Life would go on as normal, and I'd be dead before my 14th birthday. Or I could go downstairs into the unknown and take in it from there. I took a deep breath and headed downstairs. I scrutinised Dr. Bryce and made no attempt to hide it, but unlike most grown-ups, Dr. Bryce didn't look annoyed or try to give a false smile. Instead, he met my gaze unwaveringly.